What is going on, everybody? It is me, the Viking Weeb. I'm bringing back the Gentlest of Men. As you could see, there's no one here with me. It is a solo dolo kind of day. But I'll tell you this, it's a good day. There's a statistic out there that 63% of podcasts don't make it past episode 10. So this is a make or break episode for me. And I chose to do it at my weakest, alone. But hey, I started alone, and I can always go back to being alone. But I have way more fun with the Bucket Brigade, because that's what we do. We feed off each other, and I have to feed off me. So, buckle up. I doubt I'll get an hour for you, but I'm going to go for 45 minutes of a few topics here that I think are worth talking about. For starters, disclaimer, here's our topics for the day. I'm going to start off with a little bit of coffee lore, okay? I want to drop some coffee lore. I want to tell you about coffee. You all should know by now, I'm a huge coffee connoisseur. Love drinking it. I love trying different brews. I love trying different methods of brewing and steeping. I love coffee. And I was lucky enough in grade school to have a teacher that taught me about the origin of coffee. Now, I know what you're thinking. What kind of a teacher? Did you have like a coffee teacher in grade school? No, I didn't go to a school like that. Those are fancy schools. I didn't go to a school that taught me about coffee. My teacher just knew a lot about coffee because I told him that I loved coffee. And he said, "Really? You? You're a kid. What kind of coffee do you drink?" And so I told him what I got. Now, mind you, I was like a junior. So like my version of coffee was milk and sugar and coffee. But I'm going to get into exactly how I described this. He asked me what kind, and I said, "Oh, the usual, like what anyone would get." And he said, "So black." And me thinking I had just missed on a subtle cue, I said, "Oh, is that how everyone does it?" And he said, "No, just like people that actually drink coffee, drink it black." Now, everyone has like their style. Maybe you add a little hint of sugar or a hint of cream for color. But if you like coffee, you should be drinking coffee for the flavor of coffee. If you want the flavor of a sweet treat drink, get a milk tea. Tea was designed to be versatile in every way, whereas coffee wasn't. Coffee was actually a remedy, and this is where he started. He said coffee used to be a remedy. It was founded in India, okay, and it started as a soup. Let that sink in. It started as a soup. They would take the beans, okay, and they'd put them in water. No roasting, okay? So don't imagine like they were brewing coffee. No. They took the coffee bean, which is usually like a lightish, pale, greenish color. Think lima bean. Maybe even a little bit light. Different beans have different colors, right? As do like, pinto, white beans, black beans, red beans, kidney beans. You name it, right? They all have different colors. But garlic. Not garlic. I lied to you just now. I said garlic because I was thinking about garlic bread. Pause. Garlic bread would be amazing right now. But let's talk about coffee, because I'm not here to talk about garlic bread. I'll get into the lore of garlic bread eventually, I promise, because I messed up, and in doing so, I will bring you that lore. But let's keep going with coffee here. Let me not get too off track. So, my teacher says, coffee started in India as a soup, and they would use it to cure different kinds of sleep issues. Now, that might make sense. It might actually make the opposite of sense, but the people in India were very, very smart the way they utilized this. See, they didn't give people this soup at night before they slept, they knew the properties of this soup gave you energy. So, not only does it give you energy, it increases peristalsis. Now, for those of you like myself who know a lot of really stupid shit, but don't know very much anything else, this is not common knowledge. Peristalsis is the process of your intestines pushing shit through them. Sometimes, literally. I know, right? That's why when you drink like your first sip of coffee, or for those of us that are in our 30s now, you smell coffee and you might need to go. That's what it does. It increases peristalsis. So, that's how it started. That's the origin. Now you're probably wondering, okay, I could see it, but how did we get to coffee today? All right, so those of you who don't know history, mind you, this was a history teacher, he also taught science. So if I said science in the beginning, it's because he did teach both. Good on him for being multi-capable. LOL. So he told me that was the origin. And I asked, well, did they not know about sugar? And he said, well, no, it was medicinal. It wasn't used like that. Not until coffee farms started getting popular in different parts of the world. But that doesn't happen for another couple 100 years. And I said, oh, well, what was going on in the meantime? He said it was used medicinally, strictly. And then we get to the point where China is starting to become this power because of the trade that is ongoing at this time and this period. Now, I thought, and I still feel like he said the time period was during the Silk Road and all that fun jazz where Marco Polo went across all of Asia, that whole nine. But I don't remember him saying that. So I'm not going to touch on that. And I did do some quick Google references, so I'm not messing up the story. But I wanted to give you a majority of this from my point of view as someone who wasn't knowledgeable. So he said, well, China became pretty strong in trade. And they saw the medicinal capabilities of these beans, and they started spreading them, trading them, buying them, and spreading them all across Asia. Coffee farms became quite popular. Never as popular as rice, but that's because rice is so versatile. Not only medicinally, but for food. And that's when it clicked. So China started doing what they do best, and that is, for lack of better words, innovating. So they were innovating with not only the medicinal properties of whatever they got their hands on, but also its food and nourishment capabilities, right? Nutritional capabilities, there it is. The right words aren't coming when they need to, I tell you. So they start messing with coffee beans, okay? Now, other countries are doing the same thing, but my teacher gave the credit to China. Mind you, this is, I want to say 2010, maybe 2009, somewhere there. So he says they determined that roasting this bean made a very, very different aroma, an aroma that stirred almost like a craving. And this happened across the world, right? Different people were trying different methods of cooking this bean. And it was discovered when put in, I believe it was, I want to say it was like a cast iron pan, right? You could roast these beans like on an open fire. And you could get them to be dark but not burnt. And that was the goal, which was a very difficult process. Eventually, it became very streamlined after a official way started creeping around the western parts of Asia. and southern parts of Asia. Because, mind you, India's not in the dark on this. They started with this thing, and they kept up consistently. They're also right below China, so whatever China finds out, they kind of squizzle in and do the same, right? As far as like the coffee trade, right? Or the coffee lore we have here. So I then ask, okay, well, if they roasted these coffee beans, and then what? Is that how they get coffee? I said, no. It then became like a pill. They would eat this. They would chew it up. Then they started putting it like on things as like dessert. Believe it or not, this is right around the same time period they started making rice into a frozen dessert. They were adding sugarcane and rice and mashing it all together and freezing it to get mochi, and they would sprinkle coffee on this, the bean, crushed up parts of the bean. And realizing this added something, these were different layers, they went back to the original process. They started roasting it and steeping it, but they noticed they weren't getting the same flavor. It was just, like how you get those waters at the store that are a hint of fruit or a hint of this? That's what they were getting. So they started making the water hot, and it was getting better, but still not where they wanted it. And yes, eventually, the next step, they crushed it. But they were now getting those crushed pieces, because we're not to ground yet. They were getting those crushed pieces, and they were starting to drink them, and they didn't want that. But they were at the flavor they wanted. So, at this time, Europe starts to take off with tea. And yes, this is where we get to the Renaissance period. During the Renaissance, or right before the Renaissance, I should say, right before, there was a Frenchman, don't know his name, but he invented the French press, or prototypes of said French press. I don't know if this is the same person that got the credit for making the actual French press or the predecessor to said French press. Wasn't given to me in this little lore drop my teacher was giving me. So I'm not going to give you the exact either. I don't know. He was very vague in some parts because I don't think he knew the names, so he didn't want to give me too much. Thus, I'm going to do the same thing. So this guy, he makes a makeshift French press. He grinds the beans up in a hand grinder, not like your electric Hamilton device, right? And when he grinds it up, he lets it sit like tea because he didn't have any bags to put tea in. Now, back in the day, they would have these little metal spoons, right? And the tea leaves were big enough where if you put leaves in this little spoon that had like a spoon on both sides, it was kind of like, imagine two ice cream scoops, but like they clasped at the handles. That's basically what it was, but there's holes all over this ice cream scoop, okay? I know that's not what this is called. For those of you that are big tea drinkers or big coffee drinkers, shut up. This is for people that don't know, okay? Or if you want to put the name of it in the comments and make me and everybody else feel stupid, you can do that. I give you permission. You're allowed. So, they use this contraption for tea. And he wanted to use it for coffee, but the coffee beans were so finely ground, he started making different levels of consistency to the beans that he bought that were already roasted. So, you now have a man with different levels of grounded up beans, and he was trying to find the level at which you get the best flavor. Now, I'll sit here and tell you all day long which I think it is. And we might not disagree. But this man will. So this man determined that a chunky bean, like break it into like 16ths, that was the best consistency. Now the French press that he used was not a actual French press like you and I know. It is a cup that you drink out of that has a strainer. There is no pressing. Think of it like a cup you would steep something in and you could just drink out of it. They make those today for like infusion pitchers and infusion cups. I know they have like a version for like protein shakers, I believe it is. You can infuse different vegetables or fruits. I don't know why you'd want to infuse a vegetable. I feel like you should get punched if you want to infuse a vegetable. That's just me. So, that being said, he determines that a chunkier bean gives you a better flavor. But he realized the thinner and more fine he goes with the grounds, the more he's getting in his mouth. But it doesn't taste bad. It tastes good, but the feeling isn't good. He described it as a very thin, loose, wet sand, which, if you've ever tried to drink coffee grounds, like in a clump, that's still pretty accurate. Mind you, this part of the conversation I did not have with my teacher because class started. Had to wait for another week and a half before we returned to this conversation. So mind you, this is where my head's at. I'm like, oh, cool. That's where coffee kind of ended. And I remember he came over to me at the start of that week because I think we started talking about it on like a Wednesday. So at the start of the week, he gets with me and he says, hey, I never did finish telling you about coffee. I said, oh, man, that's awesome. I had no idea. I didn't call my teacher man, by the way. I called him his, name. Mr. blah, 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 right? Because I'm not going to tell you my teacher's name. It'd make you laugh. So anyway, I'll just call him Teach. Because I'm a cool kid. Just kidding. I've been a nerd my whole life. And I'll continue to be a nerd my whole life. Shout out to all the nerds. So he tells me, no, there's more. It doesn't end with the Frenchman. It continues. See, the Frenchman, apparently, he wasn't very popular. He's kind of a madman. Maybe not crazy, but he wasn't really known for, let's say, his personality, okay? So apparently, somebody knew what he was doing, okay? Now, he wasn't behind closed doors doing this, but he wasn't necessarily being outright with it. Well, I guess someone saw what he was doing and started to do the same thing, but they went back home. They didn't do it in the street, and they didn't do it in France. They did it in Italy. See where this is going? And this Italian, who, if my teacher was correct, was actually Italian and French. I believe his father was Italian, his mother was French. Something like that. I don't know. That lore doesn't matter. His origin doesn't matter. Don't ask me about his lore, because I didn't ask about his lore. The story is more important than this guy's background. And I'm not going back and readdressing it. Do not ask me. Don't put it in the comments. I'll roast you. Or at least I'll try to. Like I said, I'm a nerd. I'm not really good at roasting people. I do have good comebacks when I get roasted. Don't try that either. My wife will find you. Now, on a less serious note, back to coffee lore. So yeah, this Italian, he started doing the same thing, but not with a French press. He developed basically the forerunner of filtration. Ah, yes, the first tea bag. But not tea bag for tea, tea bag for coffee, because the tea bag for tea was invented within this time period, and it was super popular in Italy. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, I thought tea bags were from Great Britain. Well, first of all, don't be a racist, but you're not wrong. They were kind of invented in Britain, but also think Britain owned most of the world for a long period of the time because they had a navy. So, they're, what do you call them? The place where they set up shop in different countries. Those people that were British did in fact start inventing tea bags to put these different herbs in, to make the tea or the herbs in the bags, right, last longer to be able to get from point A to point B. They dry them out, they put them in these bags. Well, what they notice, they get wet and they seep, right? That liquid that's coming out that's the tea. That's tea. They drink that. And they started making small versions of these. Okay. Fast forward. The Italian, right? The French Italian. The Fralalian. Or the Frentalian. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying, man. I'm trying. He gets a hold of these tea bag prototype phenomenons, and he starts doing the same thing with coffee. He shapes his like the bottom of a mug. Yes, a round tea bag, but no string. No string. Because why do you need a string? Once again, coffee's never been steeped and pulled out before. Coffee's always been within the fluid that they drink. Always. So he makes this tea bag. He puts it at the bottom of his little cup. He adds hot water. Not a lot. Maybe like 4 ounces. Boom. You have the makeshift espresso. Now, keep in mind, coffee beans didn't have different styles of roasting yet. But what he essentially did is he made the first espresso, okay, based on the style of which he was drinking it. Because the difference in beans, the difference in roasts, and the difference in storage hasn't been changed yet. It's all the same. So, we move forward. I end up catching him in the hallway. And this is the last part of the story. Because I had a free period. So I got to catch the rest of the story. And he told me, in the rest of this large amount of time, not kidding, large amount of time, you'll see why I'm laughing. I'm not really laughing, but you'll see why I'm making fun of what I'm saying. He told me the last little bit of the coffee lore. He said every country started to get to the point where they were becoming more transparent and vocal. Because keep in mind, this is like the Renaissance time period. So everyone's sharing everything they got. Art's being shared, techniques are being shared, coffee, spices, all of this is getting shared. The spice trade was huge. Pirates were at large. Great Britain was figuring out America, I want to say, is what he said. And I don't know how Lord accurate that is, because he said, I think they were even starting America. But I don't think it was America. I think we're along the lines of, what is it? Christopher Columbus days? I think, not day, not to be confused with the holiday. I'm thinking like during his time period, right? I don't even know if he made it to America yet. Shit, we could be on the lines of Magellan still. I don't know. Because my teacher said we could have been even like in the days of Christopher Columbus. Granted, he believed that Columbus discovered America, but like, you know, fun facts, he didn't. Didn't make it. Poor guy. Yeah, too bad Vikings found America first. Oh, not one of those, that's not a conspiracy theory. That's truth. That's truth. I preach the word of truth, the gentlest truth. But yeah, coffee lore. Let me finish this, because this is the best. This is one of my favorite parts. So all this happens. Fast forward a couple hundred years. Now America is being established. Tea is the thing. And what do Americans do? We revolt. We hate you, Great Britain. We're going to separate from the king. We don't want to do blah, blah, blah. You know how it goes. History. Okay. For those of you that don't know, I'm sure there's a YouTube video on here that will cover the American history from 1771 up to 1776. Those are really the big years you need to pay attention to. I would go in depth, but my teacher didn't. So he said, kind of a way to get back. We tossed their tea. But our people were so used to drinking tea. And across the world, tea was the norm. However, coffee became a delicacy. Coffee was expensive. Coffee was hard to make. And different styles of beans were starting to come out because it was being farmed in different places. Well, one of the trade routes that we were able to establish with lower parts of the Caribbean and even parts of Africa were coffee trade. And we, as Americans, were able to get a hold of coffee. This was way better than tea because what we used to do is grind it up and put it in tea bags. And we steeped it. But we didn't steep it like any normal, tea beverage, right? There wasn't a string attached to it. We didn't do what the Italians did with the little, circle tea bag that stays in the cup. No. We put it above something. This was the first pour over. Okay? Pour over was established. No grounds in the coffee. It was slow. It had a good kick to it. The men of this era loved this, and it started to take a lot more track, and it was getting popular everywhere, all across Europe, all across the island chains of the lower parts of the Caribbean, all over Asia. This was becoming the norm. And not one person discovered it. My teacher harped on that. He said not one person discovered it. It was just happening everywhere. People were figuring out what to do all at the same time. Now, I thought that was kind of cool because, first of all, my teacher's a diehard American, right? But he gave credit to everybody. And I'm not saying kudos to him. I'm just simply saying he would have tooted the horn of America if there was even an inkling that America discovered it. So he gave credit to everyone. So I'm going to go on a limb here and say everyone did discover it at the same time. Because he would have said, no, America discovered it first. No. I feel that. But I did a little Googling, so you wouldn't have to. There are specifics. There are specific places, names, time periods, and they do line up with my teacher's story. There are some that don't. I'm giving you the lore drop that my teacher gave me. Now, I'm going to tell you this. The parts that don't line up, I think it was just because he didn't know which time period was which. And you know what? That's all right. The story remains true. The story remains true. And for all those of you out there that are very logical, don't. I don't care. I don't. Don't do it. Don't do it. But anyway, that is coffee lore. And it only has gotten bigger and better since then. So I go to my final spot of what's my favorite. How do I make coffee? So, different coffees do different things. Okay. If you didn't know, dark roast coffee doesn't mean it's stronger. And no. Same thing with the beans. Just because it's a dark roast or a Arabica bean, that doesn't change how strong the coffee is. The difference is the styles of brewing. That's why there's different types of roasts. The type of roast is how the bean is cooked. Now, this is a really good example that I got from a friend, and I'm going to add on to it. So, the example I got was cooking. When you cook, think of a vegetable, okay? I'm going to think of broccoli, because broccoli is pretty simple. Okay, it looks like a tree. It's fun to bite off the tops and pretend you're a dinosaur, right? Let's use broccoli. When you cook broccoli, if you cook it for a minute, how much broccoli juice is still in that broccoli? How much broccoli flavor is in that broccoli? A lot, right? Okay. What if I cook that broccoli for 10 minutes in boiling water? That broccoli's probably going to taste like water. It's going to be soft. It's going to be falling apart. I'm going to struggle to get it out unless I have a spoon or a ladle, right? That's your coffee roast. The less you roast it, the better. Thus, light roast doesn't mean it's light caffeine. It means it's not roasted a lot. It's stronger. Dark roast is roasted longer. It's more flavorful, less caffeinated. I like the flavor of dark roast. I always will. I think dark roast is superb when it comes to the flavor of coffee. I'm also at the age now where I kind of like to do a little bit of like 2 cups. You know what I mean? I'm a 2 cup and a morning person. But if I don't have time for 2 cups, I'm going to need me a light roast. So there's different styles that I get. I'm a Lavazza guy through and through because I believe coffee really started to take off when it got to Italy. So I'm thankful to India for discovering it. I'm thankful to China for spreading it. And I'm thankful for France for being innovative. But I respect Italy for making the first tangible brew that was up my alley of enjoying coffee. So, I prefer a good dark roast. Now, I'm probably wondering, hey, there's also medium roast. And I've seen medium light and medium dark. Yeah, you're right. I don't believe that. I only believe in light, medium, and dark. Now, I've seen medium roasts that are full-bodied, which means it has more of a depth of flavor, right? So whenever I see full-bodied, I think of dark roast 9 times out of 10. Because I know a dark roast is going to have a full body. That just means the feeling of it, the strength of it, it's going to sit right. You might only need one. If it says smooth and fruity, I usually think it's a little bit lighter. The smoother, the lighter I feel like it is. As in, easier it goes down. It might have more caffeine, but it's not going to get that, oh, I'm going to sip on this for the next hour. No. I'm going to just drink this in 15 minutes. If it's smooth, it's going to go quick. If it's full-bodied, it's good for sipping on. That's how I look at it. If I have some baristas in the comments who want to call me out and tell me I'm wrong, do it. I don't care. My opinion means more than your facts. However, I don't think I'm wrong. I'd like someone to actually confirm it for me, but, Google's right in front of me, so I could just do that. Not gonna. But that's where I'm at. That's the type I like. So if you like a good, strong coffee flavor, you need to go darker. If you like something that hits you like caffeine and you need to go, light roast. Now, this is where it starts getting more connoisseur level of coffee drinking, okay? If you drink light roast, you are more able to be versatile with your flavor. As in, if you drink a light roast, if you brew a light roast, if you add a little bit of cream, you're going to be able to taste that cream easier than you would in a dark roast. If you add a teaspoon size of cream to a dark roast coffee and a light roast coffee, your light roast will taste a little creamier versus your dark roast, you probably won't notice you added cream. And that is because of the flavor level and intensity of the flavor of coffee. Now, I know I just said, hey, in my example, if you have broccoli and you steam it for 1 minute, all that flavor's in the bean. Yes, but that flavor, the actual flavor of the bean, doesn't taste how you think it does. It's that caffeine. It's that pungent punch that you get. It's normally a very smooth drink. The lighter it is roasted, the smoother it'll be. Now, I've had some full-bodied light roasts, and that is a mind bender right there. I'm trying to get better. I'm sorry, YouTube. And viewers, I apologize for being a curse magnet. It's just how I am. I'll do better. Back to coffee lore. I understand. It makes a lot of sense having roasted broccoli or boiled broccoli for a minute, and you expect more of a coffee flavor or a broccoli flavor, right? Still not fully cooked. Yes, but that flavor is still inside the bean, and what seeps out whenever you crack it open, you grind it up, you're getting more of that caffeine punch. Versus the dark roast, you don't as much. The flavor's still there, but it's not as... Basically, the longer you roast coffee, the more flavor you're going to be able to get out of it, the less caffeine comes out of it. So that's why a lot of people enjoy a good medium roast, because that's right in the middle. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, though. It's not always in the middle. What they don't tell you is, whenever you get a medium roast, it's 9 times out of 10 a medium light roast or a medium dark roast. There are a lot of half and halves, but you don't see them as much as you think you do, because it's normally not advertised. You got to look on the back and see the caffeine content. A normal standard cup of coffee is usually between 40 and 70 milligrams of caffeine, depending on how big of a glass you drink. I like my good 8-ouncer. A lot of people use 6. If you're a 6-ounce to 4-ounce kind of person, you're probably getting closer to 25 to 30. Okay? But let's do strictly light roast, okay? Now, there are different ways to brew it, right? There's the steaming method, there's the steeping method, there's pour over, which is basically steeping, but it's a little different nonetheless. If you don't know the differences, right? Steeping is you put the beans and they soak in there, right? Not the whole beans, ground up, okay? Now, there's different levels of grinding those beans depending on how strong you want your coffee. Supposedly, there's a sweet spot, which is what that Frenchman discovered. There's a sweet spot. I like my stuff a little bit finer, but I don't like it sand fine, if that makes sense. I'm more of the, for lack of better words, I put my roasted beans into a grinder and I count to 5. I give a little shake. I hit the button one more time, but I don't hold it. I just hit it. Done. Not even a full 6 seconds. That's what I do. That is my sweet spot. It's a little bit more than coarse. It's less than fine. I'm sure there's a name for it. I just don't know it. But that's where I like to see it. That's where I like it. I don't put cream in my coffee, and I'm weaning off sugar. I do like a pinch. I do an actual pinch. Like if you had a grandma that was really good at cooking or really good at baking, and when she said a pinch, she literally pinched the seasoning or whatever it was and added that. She just like rubbed her fingers together. That's what I do with my sugar. Maybe not literally, because that can be viewed as unsanitary. I do it to my own coffee. I'll leave it at that. I do it to my own coffee. I don't care. But that being said, I'm weaning off slowly. On the weekends, I might throw a tiny little bit of rum chata in there, but I do different themed coffees. So like in the wintertime, I do more dark roast, more full-bodied. I like to sip on it. I like it to be warm for longer. I like a thicker coffee. That's just me. We also, me and the wife, will do decaf in the afternoon. I love a good cup of decaf. But I don't grind my own decaf beans. I need to. I know. Because there was a prior episode I had mentioned, I think it was actually episode 6, maybe 4. It could have been on the Bucket Brigade, to be honest. And it probably was in one of the Bucket Brigade podcasts called The Bucket List. If you haven't gone and checked any of those out, I'll put on the end screen you see here for this video. Whenever you're done with this podcast, I'll give you like a 1-minute warning. Check out my end screen, and I'll put the Bucket Brigade Bucket List podcast in there. Go check that out. We have a lot of good content over there. But I'm actually going to try and wrap this up. I know I said I had so many topics, but turns out I actually really just wanted a coffee dump. So, literally. I'm going to leave you with this, which might pique your interest. If you made it this far, you deserve this fun fact. okay? There is a reason why grinding your own beans is considered better. Sure, I can say it's fresher. Sure, I can say it makes you sound or look cool when you say, I grind my own beans. Okay. But, like, not really. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a chore. Everyone likes things to be automated. We like it now, 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 now. We're in a society that's all about now. A lot of people are just like, hey, there's nothing wrong with my coffee pot, even if it is awfully hot. And I don't mind. I don't mind the whole coffee pot method. But let's take a step back of how we brew it and how do you like your beans. A lot of people I don't want to use the word laziness because I'm not going to call people lazy, but that's how I was. I preferred ground coffee because it was easier. I don't have to grind it. I could just pour it into a filter. Or, right, alternatively, I know a lot of people have moved over to K-Cups and Nespresso, all these different styles of pods and this and that and this and that. I'm not going to lie to you. You're going to hate to hear this. That's instant coffee. And I don't care. I'll say it again. It's instant coffee. You think you're a connoisseur? That shit's instant. Shake the K-Cup. When you're done, shake the K-Cup. Better yet, you're not going to use it. Open it. Open it. How much grounds are in there? Open a dry one, open a wet one. See what you see. There are some that will have nothing. If you're drinking K-Cups and your cup comes out and you can see through it, there's no grounds in there, that's instant coffee, my guy. Freeze-dried, regular coffee. Instant. And that's not bad. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that's bad. But when I give you the reason I give you on why I grind my own beans, that's why I wouldn't even do instant coffee. Although I do every now and again. I can't help it. I do every now and again. But there is a reason why I like to see where it comes from. And that's because I don't know the real statistic, so I'm not going to give you a made-up number, but there is a percentage of grain in the United States and or just anywhere. Grain, idle, sitting grain, is kind of like, in my opinion, idle, sitting water. Things get into it. Things. For water, it's bacteria. Maybe it's random dead plant life. Could be bacteria, cells, viruses, you name it. Everything is malleable and it all goes into water and becomes this big slush of grossness, right? Microscopically, you can't really see it to the naked eye unless you let it sit long enough, and then you're stupid for even drinking that, right? But same thing with grain. And we have giant storages of grain all over the world. And it has been found that in just about all grain storages, animals and bugs, mainly bugs, make their nest. And I know what you're thinking. There's no bugs in my coffee. I don't see them. Well, most coffees are ground fine. Most are ground fine. You wouldn't be able to tell. And then, on top of that, most people don't open their K-Cups. Most people don't open their Nespresso pods. You're going to look me in the eye and tell me every restaurant you go to and order coffee, you go back and look at their grounds. You look how they store it. I don't believe you. The biggest culprit is cockroaches. If every time you drink coffee, you feel like you have an itching, burning, scratching sensation somewhere, right? And you think you're allergic, try grinding your own beans. Just try it. If by chance, like myself, you don't get hives, you don't have some kind of weird thing go on with your skin or your throat or your lungs or your eyes because you grind your own beans, you could be allergic to cockroaches. If you go to a doctor and you say, every time I drink coffee, I'm getting hives, most doctors that know something, and I say know something as in like they know a little bit more than the bare minimum they need to do to perform their job, they're going to ask if you have any allergies to cockroaches. That's not an uncommon thing to hear. So, we've made it a full 45 minutes. Strictly coffee lore. All those topics I told you we were going to get to, we're going to cover that in episode 11. It's been an absolute pleasure to sit here and give you episode 10. I feel like this was kind of a special in my own little way because I got to talk about something I'm very passionate about, very enjoyable to me, and I made it the full time period. Kudos to me, right? I guess, kind of. Also, I hope you all enjoy the Gentlest of Men podcast. In the future, hopefully, we can get No Name and Pal to join us a little more often. I do enjoy the banter back and forth, and I enjoy being able to rely on my co-hosts to give ideas that I wouldn't have thought of on my own, because I am not a very genuinely good idea guy. I think of a lot of things, but I don't know if they're going to work or not. So then I just kind of vibe. I'm different on stream, I promise. If you want to check out some of my streams. Speaking of streams, be on the lookout for Stalker 2. The Viking Weeb channel will be playing through Stalker 2 as a stream. Also a rating of a 1 through 10, which I believe I've been out for like a week or two. Family things happen. Everyone has a life outside of streaming. This is a hobby for me, and I've said that before. So for whatever reason, if I'm not posting consistently, hey, just vibe, don't go anywhere. I'll be back with content more like this, more like the streams and the 1 through 10 ratings you've seen in the past. And as always, with the Bucket Brigade collabing and living up our best life. I actually got asked since, by the way, congrats to me, and thank you for getting me there. I'm at 4.8 thousand subscribers. I was asked if I'm going to start making money from this. I said no. This is a hobby. I enjoy doing this for myself. I'm very proud of doing this, and I have a lot of fun doing this, and seeing how many people I get to subscribe is kind of cool. I will not be getting paid. I refuse. So in the future, if you hear ads on my channel, either you don't have YouTube Premium or I'm doing something because I want to. That's right. If you see an ad on my channel of any kind, I'm doing it because I want to. LOL. For instance, just wait till we get to Liquid Death. I will get a sponsor, and I'm going to tell them I don't want money. Isn't that crazy? I don't want money. Don't pay me. I just want free shit. Send me a box a month of sparkling water, and I'll mention you in every episode and how I like you. Because I genuinely drink Liquid Death a lot. I think the whole water in a can it might be weird for some of you, but I lived in Europe for a little while, and sparkling water is kind of, in my opinion, better than still water. And it doesn't really matter what it comes in. It all tastes the same because it's sparkling water. Do not get that confused with tonic water, please. That being said, I busted my timeline of 45 minutes, but I don't care because I like to give you free things, like my time, for free. So, if you like content like this, you liked this episode, or you made it the whole way through, please give me a like, subscribe, and hit that little bell you see there. I promise you I will text you every single time that I go live, that I drop an episode, that I stream, anything like that. I will message you personally, just you. Yes, you. My fingers are crossed as hell. So, yeah, expect that. Expect that. So, wherever you are in the world, be well, be safe, be good. I appreciate you. Thank you for getting me to 4.8. We're still on the road to 5K. When we hit 5K, I'll do a little special something. I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but we'll do something. With that being said, you all have a good one, and as always, good night.